She out production.
What make him real is his understanding of that reality and his basing everything that he is, everything he does, everything he aspires to do, everything he even doesn't do on that reality.
You know, my time incarcerated, like my prior incarceration, I came in, I was a juvenile. And like 2 months in, I witnessed an individual that was close to me killed. 17 years old, killed. Things like that, you know, a lot of experiences like that, back-to-back experiences like that. Haven't had no rest, no peace in my life. Placed into the custody of my grandmother, who herself was a young lady struggling with life and had her priorities kind of mixed up, to the point where she couldn't tell me that she didn't really know how to raise a child. You know what I mean? She didn't raise her daughter right, let alone her. And as a result of things that took place in her custody, I was placed into foster care permanently, I think when I was 8. And it's been a story pretty much been in foster care and juvenile facilities in the streets since 8. I had stayed, as long as I stayed in there, it was like 3 years. And by the time I had moved in and out when I was 8, and by that time the foundation had been laid in terms of like my self-perception, you know, what I believe were my options, my value. So I didn't know what to appreciate or how to appreciate. I didn't feel like, part of me didn't feel like I was connected, you know what I mean? I guess because a part of me understood like this isn't our biological family. And it was never explained to me why, you know, my life worked out as it did in terms of my mother and my father. But I can recall I had a second grade teacher by the name of Miss Guy, and Hale. She really reached out to me. She's the reason I read to this day. Besides her, I can't really recall any memorable or endeavor encounters with any of my teachers besides get out of here, get out of my class, or something like that. Nothing that was life-changing and life-altering. And coming from it from a perspective to where at one point in time, even when I knew that the things, the attitudes, the actions, the habits, the things that I was doing was against the grain, it was difficult to, for anyone to tell me anything different. You know, I was convinced that this is where I needed to be and work out.
Out here, on life. I got those guns on life. Here, babe, my little bro. I got so much swag, I still got it.
Somebody take our picture.
I'm gonna chop it up. My nigga, my granny. My nigga right here.
Accused killer shaped my life of neglect and violence. 2003. Sitting in jail at the age of 16, Prentiss Williams said it was no fun behind bars or packing a gun. But he quickly added, if that's all you know, you're gonna do what you know. Police and prosecutors believe Williams knows guns. Now 24, he's back behind bars at the Lucas County Jail, accused of fatally shooting 4 people, wounding another, and firing a gun at a jail corrections officer. At the time he made those comments to the Blade, Williams had been certified to stand trial as an adult for a 1995 shooting that injured a man. He was eventually convicted and received a sentence of 6 to 15 years. Prior to that, Williams was charged with the May 1994 murder of 37-year-old Robert Hendricks, who was found dead inside a suspected crack house in the 1900 block of Nelson Wood Avenue. Williams was 15 when he was charged with that murder, but the charge was ultimately dismissed because witness could not be located. However, Williams was not delinquent of a found delinquent of a firearms offense. The charge was filed when police seeking Williams in connection with Mr. Hendricks' murder found him sleeping in a car with a Tech-9 assault weapon in his possession. Last week, police charged Williams with killing Shelly Renee Johnson, 29, who was found shot 3 times in the head in a sport utility vehicle in the 1500 block of Van Street. She was killed just 2 months after Mr. Hendricks' 1994 murder. Williams is also facing a death penalty in 2 murders he's accused of committing last year. His wife, Shari Manning, 20, and her uncle, Frank Nishan Badgett, 35, were also charged in the crimes, one of which the murder for hire, according to our court records. One of the victims, Carmita Dickey, wasn't the intended target. Court records indicate Badgett, who has a 1992 felony drug conviction in California, hired Williams to kill someone after Badgett was the victim of a large drug robbery. Ms. Dickey, 30, was in a car with Damian Davis, then 28, when Williams and Jonathan Booker shot them May 25, 2002, near Ottawa Park, court records indicate. Mr. Davis survived, Miss Dickey didn't. The next day, 24-year-old Booker, who was with Williams, was charged in Miss Dickey's slaying, was found shot to death less than a mile away in the 1300 block of the Thatcher Drive. Court records indicate that Badgett urged Williams to kill Booker to cover up Miss Dickey's murder. The two slayings happened a month after Lucas County Common Pleas Court Judge William Scow released Williams early from his prison sentence for the 1995 shooting in which he had wounded his target. In May 1999, Williams had a hearing before the Ohio Parole Authority, which projected that he would remain behind bars until at least 2007, said Joellen Cope of the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. But Judge Scow released Williams after he had served 6 years and 3 months of his sentence. Last week, the judge told the Blade that if he thought there was any chance Williams would possibly be involved in another offense, he certainly wouldn't have let him out. Judge Scow said he decided to release Williams early because he was extremely young and served a considerable period of time. During his time in state prison, Williams had 35 to 40 misconduct reports. His rule violations include having an intoxicating substance, fighting, and creating disturbance, prison officials have said. It's not uncommon for inmates to have numerous conduct reports inside an institution, said Larry Green of the Southern Ohio Correctional Institution of Lucasville. He says some inmates have more conduct reports, others have less. But what concerns law enforcement officials is how Williams was managed to get things smuggled to him even when he was behind bars. Williams nearly got marijuana smuggled to him in a pair of tennis shoes a year after he entered the state prison, prison officials said. While being held recently at Lucas County Jail, Williams somehow got a possession of a 9mm handgun along with $250 and a cell phone. On October 14, he pulled a gun on a corrections officer in the 6th floor maximum security area and fired 2 shots through a metal door at a correction officer who managed to close the door before fleeing unharmed. Williams later relinquished the weapon and was taken into custody. State custody of Williams has been an issue since he was 3 years old. That was the age as the Lucas County Children's Services first took custody of Williams, said Dean Sparks. Although Williams went to live with his mother and grandmother, the agencies took custody of him at ages 6 and 8. His parents' rights were terminated when he was 10. Williams spent time in a variety of foster homes. Although he told the Blade in 1995 that he liked several of the homes, he identified as true family members of the Gear Gang Crips who lived on the streets. As a teen, Williams was known around his gang friends as the OG. He called his gang members Little Family. He said that they liked the way he thought and they started giving him respect. Drugs were also a backdrop in his world. Mr. Sparks and Williams was once adopted, but the adoption failed. He was a runaway even from a group home and spent time in therapy. He did well in his few first years in school, but then slipped. He was kicked out of school several times, mostly for fighting. Williams spent time in the county's juvenile detention center and in a State Department of Youth Services facility. Lucas County Juvenile Court Judge James Ray, who certified Williams to stand trial as an adult in 2 murders he is accused of committing at the age of 15, said he couldn't comment on Williams or his cases. Speaking in general, the judge said that most people who harm others were deeply harmed themselves or by people they should have trusted. It's another sad case, man. Obviously, he come from a failed family. But, we can't keep putting our kids into these systems, leaving our kids in these systems, expecting our children to come out all good. I had experience with the child foster homes and runaways and the streets myself, But one thing I just realized is that the justice system, they let him out early. You know what I'm saying? And not only that, they didn't make sure he was rehabilitated. They left him right back out in the streets where he was from. I mean, yeah, that's supposed to happen, but, you know, you see he had 35 to 40 tickets of misconducts in jail, got guns, all that in the jail. And they just act like they don't protect the jails. Like he just, you know, they underhand his because they know he's getting it in on them. You know what I mean? That's a failed system. And they just act like, they just act like they don't want nothing to do with brothers like this. But this is what we pay taxes for. This is what we pay taxes for. So, you know, we sit and judge these people, but what are they to do? And hit that like, them comments, and subscribe, man. Tell me what y'all think about this case, man. It's crazy.
Yeah. What make him real is his understanding of that reality and his basing everything that he is, everything he does, everything he aspires to do, everything he even doesn't do on that reality.